Hello everyone, my name is Clantis and welcome to the Clan. So without further ado, let's get into this video. I know you guys, it's been a minute since we've seen each other, and on Saturday, because of load shedding happening 3 times for 4 hours, I couldn't go live. Because every time I tried to set up, the lights will go off. And I would set up again, the lights will go off. Like literally we had like 2 hours of I don't know, like, you know, the 2 hours of electricity, and then out of the blue it was gone. So at the time when I thought, okay, now I can go live, no, the light will absolutely go off, and I was left seriously upset. And my inverter as well had run out of battery. Is it battery that it works with? Yeah, it was not fully charged, so there was nothing I could have done on Saturday. But anyways, guys, let's go to the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial at the North Gauteng High Court. But before we get there, please do me a favor by smashing the like button. 1,750 likes in the last video. Wow, you guys, thank you so much. I highly appreciate it. Let's keep on doing this, because you do see the clan is growing every time you click the like button. It happens the same with other YouTubers. Please just don't watch the YouTubers video and do not like. It's very important that you do that for them as well. Also, guys, thank you for the support. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do. If you are new here, hello, my name is Clantis and welcome to the clan. So let's go to the North Gauteng High Court, to the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, where Sergeant Bongani, I think, concluded his testimony. Remember, he was stood down because the defense team wanted to question him regarding the AVL report by Dupree. So now that Dupree is done with his AVL report, which is a wishy-washy if you asked me, and I'll still say that the defense need to get themselves their own expert, but I did not hear them submit that to the court. Or did they submit that to the court? It's just me who didn't hear that. I hope they do submit to the court. They will get their own AVL expert. And if it's money that is an issue for them, if you are listening to this video and you have some deep pockets, please, I don't think it's going to cost any more than 20,000 Rand to get an AVL expert for them, so that they are able to match the AVL with that of Dupree. But other than that, guys, let's talk about what Bongani did on the stand, which I fully agreed with Muyeki. Muyeki accused the Sergeant Bongani of submitting new evidence every time when he has to take the stand, simply because I believe he goes and watches other submissions that were made by other by his colleagues, as well as all the other witnesses, and then he comes and makes correction on the stand. And I agreed with Muyeki that you are always making corrections once you are under oath, submitting new evidence. And most of the things that he talked about, like the breakdown of the fortuner, he did not mention that in his evidence in chief. But now he has an answer for everything. But where it matters the most, he loses his memory. Yeah, for example, the stopping at the engine garage for more than 5 hours. He really has no answer for that. He trips over his own words, and he tries a lot to blame Sergeant Mabena. Sergeant Mabena is dead. And for him to actually mention Sergeant Mabena's name is utterly shameful. And on top of that, at the end, it was quite interesting when he turned the tables on accused number 2 and said, let Mr. Mabena rest in peace, because he did good for you. And yet he's the one who keeps mentioning Sergeant Mabena when he wants a scapegoat if he didn't want to answer a question. Before, remember what his scapegoat was? It was dockets that were private. If they were not private, it's intelligence. If it's not intelligence, high profile. And he was just mentioning all kinds of things just to run away from the truth. I still felt that the defense should have pressed on the dockets, and possibly if there's a certificate for classified documents, for that certificate to be submitted to the court, either by Baloy or the witness themselves. I don't know how all that works, the whole intelligence and the SAPS and crime. I don't know how all that works at all. The other evidence that I also find quite interesting, which he failed to actually point it out in the AVL, was when they stopped to buy food. Okay, you mentioned Nando's, you mentioned KFC, but the AVL mentions Wimpy at some point, which we're not sure if that Wimpy, did y'all get out and buy food? And then if you did get out and buy food, was Ntanzi fed? I don't think Ntanzi was fed at all, because he needed to be cooked. He needed to be prepared for the false confession that he subsequently made. It was quite interesting as well when he denied that Ntanzi did not have a bath. When he realized it was being pushed against the corner about bathing, that is when he was like, no, that was the responsibility of a dead man. Of course, the dead man is not going to be able to wake up from the grave and say, whoa, 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 what are you talking about? And yet, Ntanzi did report to Magistrate Cronier and told her that he hasn't bathed in 8 days. He needed a change of clothes and call his family. But all of that kind of like flew over her head, the magistrate herself, because she's heartless. Period. She's heartless. Yeah, like I said, the AVL did not show where they stopped for food. But he's mentioning Nando's and KFC. And then when he's asked, where did you stop? Suddenly now it's a totally different version of the type of food they were eating. Not the type of food, but how they stopped, where they stopped. Even, I think he took a chance about a certain stop. I can't remember which stop that he mentioned. In my mind, I'm thinking, if he's not obfuscating this guy, he's continuing with lying. And I choose that he was lying. Ntanzi was not fed, period. The other lie that he tried to somersault himself out of is, initially they were going to Vosloorus Magistrates Court. For some reason, they ended up in Moroka Police Station. And then when they went back to the initial route, they found out that Ntanzi's case is not on the roll. And he became a little bit sarcastic towards Mnyeki about that particular enrollment of Ntanzi's case, that, of course, if we were going there to enroll his case, therefore his case is not going to be on the roll. I was like, okay, there we go. The AVL also exposing him with crucial information that he should have mentioned in his evidence in chief, and also re-examination with Baloy. He has an excuse. He has an excuse for everything, this man. He has answers for every single thing. Where it matters the most, suddenly he has amnesia. The other somersault that he committed that Mnyeki called him out on was about Freedom Park. He said when they went to Northwest and Ntanzi's residence, they actually went to his place first. And then when the AVL comes up, obviously he was watching Dupree. That's when he comes back and said, no, we started at the police station because it's by law that we go to the police station first before we go to the residence of the accused. When he said they started at Ntanzi's place, then they went to the police station. That was quite interesting and telling as well. Then the interesting thing happened during short adjournment. Baloy comes back after short adjournment and reports to the court that there was a scuffle. And I want to read some of the things that he said about the scuffle. Let me read what happened actually during the scuffle, because I noted everything down. After short adjournment, Baloy informs the court that there was physical scuffle between accused number 3, accused number 4, and accused number 5 with a prison warder. Advocate Mnisi says he did see the big gentleman. He called him the big gentleman, whom pushed accused number 3 with his shoulder, but he doesn't know where all that started. He is explaining after the judge asked him about his client. He's like, well, what happened? And so, of course, Advocate Mnisi asked the judge if he could consult with his witness. Same goes with accused number 4's lawyer, which is Ngumalo, asked also to consult or to take instructions from his client, as well as Mnyeki for accused number 5. Guys, it is so hot and I'm not in high spirits, hey? I am so hot. After taking instructions from their clients, they came back. Nisi was the first one to report back to the court what actually happened. Nisi narrates the story to the judge that the big gentleman, the prison warder, refused them to sit in a particular way during recess or adjournment. They say it was just adjournment and that they could sit anywhere they want to sit. And apparently this gentleman did not like the way they sat. And so he asked them to sit properly. At first I had an issue with this, like, you're telling grown men how to sit during recess, or I mean, not recess, during adjournment. And the way I felt that his tone of voice as well was so looking down on them because they're just nobodies. They are prisoners and, you know, all of that stuff. And I was like, okay, it's fine. And then apparently they wanted to stretch, but this man refused them to stretch. And he further threatened them with violence, like he's going to beat them. Accused number 3 then told him that the court is adjourned. It's their right to stretch during breaks. This is accused number 3 telling Advocate Mnisi that this is what he told this warden. So Myeki came back and also reported and said his client, accused number 4, said he was not aware of what was going on until accused number 3 fell on him because of being pushed by a shoulder by this uniformed man, the prison warden. And that's when he realized that there was a scuffle, and because he got upset because of the scuffle, he too got involved. And this is when the judge called the gentleman forward and asked to give his full names. But before he did that, he told him that he was not under oath because he does not have a legal representative, unlike the accused that were involved in the scuffle. This is what the judge, this is in my notes. The judge indicated to this gentleman that he is not going to be putting him under oath because the gentleman is not represented by a lawyer, as accused number 3, 4, and 5 are. The gentleman explains himself, and that even on the 15th of November, they deliberately sat disorderly and they threatened to beat him when he asked them to sit properly. He told them to sit in a proper way. Then he goes on to say, yes, it is an adjournment. I understand that, but still, they needed to sit properly, shouting at them. This is what that gentleman said. They told me that it is not your job to tell them what to do. His job is to guard them. I told them that is where they are wrong because they are my responsibility. They should follow everything I instruct them to do. They continue to threaten me by howling at me with threats. Basically, they threatened to beat him up. I then saw them all coming at me, except for accused number 4. I think he said something like that. I wasn't sure. So meaning that this is where they started charging at him to beat him. Then he reports to the court that there's a full clip. Somebody was taking a video of what happened. Someone took a video, he says. Judge wanted to know from Baloyi what to do now. This is when Judge Rata wanted the CPA Criminal Procedure Act Section 159 of that act to be read to the court. And I'll tell you how I felt about that. Again, I wrote a little note on the side. I was not in, okay, this is what the judge says. I was not in court when this happened, but Section 159 still applies. Baloyi read the Section 159 of the Criminal Procedure Act 55 of 1977. And this is when the judge asked the interpreter to please interpret as Baloyi reads Section 159. And then for me, I felt that the judge, as the Baloyi was reading the act, I was like, if I'm listening to the act properly, this is a threat to the accused that if this continues to happen, that he has the right to throw them out, meaning Rata has the right to throw them out and continue having the trial without them. Then I'm like, but judge, you're already taken aside. But the judge says he's not saying who is wrong between the Vusi, whom we got to understand his name later, that his name is Vusi. I can't remember what his surname is, and accused number 3, number 4, and number 5. But we all adults. Vusi has a job to do. This is the judge saying. And I'm like, but you're saying you're not taking sides, and yet you are already mentioning Vusi's name, that he is on a job. Yes, we know he's on a job, and I'm sure the accused know he's on the job. And they even reminded him that, listen, your job is to guard us. It's not to tell us what to do when we are in court, let alone tell us how to sit. Even the demonstration by the warden, I felt that I don't understand. The furniture is not yours, it's that of government. If government feels somewhat about their furniture, then they would have instructions all over government buildings and say, please don't sit like this on the furniture. And if the furniture does break, guess what? The taxpayers will pay for it. Now, I didn't understand why he was behaving as if that furniture belongs to his house or his room. I don't know where he comes from and where he lives. But to tell them to sit properly as if they are kindergarten kids, I didn't feel good about that. But at the same time, I understood his work, that maybe if they're sitting the way they were, who knows what they were planning. Because even Rata made a passing remark and said, accused have escaped from court before. But I'm thinking these guys are heavily guarded. Most of those guys that are heavily armed, they have snipers, I think. So how far would they get if they planned to escape? And so they've been doing this since they've been attending this court. So I didn't understand as well what the whole point was and why he started the scuffle to begin with. These men have nothing to lose. I don't know if he understands that. That even if they beat him, accused number 5 has 6 life. I'm not quite sure accused number 4 and 3, but the sentences are also long. I don't understand if he understood that these guys, they have absolutely nothing to lose. They can beat him and they can add these charges on them. They'll be like, you understand what I'm trying to say? As opposed to accused number 1 and accused number 2, especially accused number 2. If he was involved in that scuffle and then I'm telling you, they would have opened a case of assault. I'm telling you, the judge would not have ruled the way he did if accused number 2 was involved. Right now, he would have an assault case. He would. But because he also calculated like, what can we get out of accused number 3, 4, and 5? This would be a waste. That's how I feel anyways. Then the judge continued to say, there's nothing wrong with stretching during adjournments. This is not parliament. He made an example about parliament, how they physically fight each other and things like that. I was like, okay, cool. I get the simile that he was making, but at the same time, I was like, was it necessary though? And then he goes on, he said something, or he wanted to say something about Ubuntu, and then he talked about sharing of a sandwich with each other. I was like, okay. Prison wardens as well as hardcore. Okay, all right, I get you, I guess. And then he continued to say, resolve these issues without being physical with each other. Basically, speak to each other with words rather than being physical. I am not making a ruling as there was no oath taken, but let's be adults, okay? And then he says, thank you. And then cross-examination continues from this point on. I'm going to read, guys, because it's late right now. Cross-examination continues, still Muyeke on the floor to Sergeant Bongani. There's been confusion in this court, but I don't remember where we started. This is Bongani telling Muyeke about a question that he asked him. It's like I think he was admitting that the way he is so confused about his own testimony in evidence in chief, under cross-examination and under re-examination, and now he says like there's been a lot of confusion. I was like, that's interesting. And then of course Mnyeke wanted to know the 2 different versions about when they got to Phokeng. Which one was it? Did you go to the police station first and then you went to Ndanzi's residence, or you started at Ndanzi's residence and then went to the police station? Again, he talks about confusion, that this case is already complicated and confusing, and so he doesn't remember whether they started at the police station or they started at Ndanzi's place, then went to the police station, and then he talked about it's by law that they need to start at the police station before they go to the residence. I was like, this is a nice admission. Finally, somebody admitted something. And then he continues to say the mind gets confused, but I don't remember if I did go there or not. I was like, oh, okay. At this point, the court experienced a problem with the recordings. We saw the marshal of the court approaching the judge. And then the judge is like, okay, the recordings are not working. And so he adjourned until they were fixed. Then the court resumed at 2 o'clock on the dot. from adjournment, which started at 11:39. Yes, I did check. And Muyeke was still on the floor, but indicated that he had one more question. And it's about going to Primrose and arriving there at 4:30. I'm not sure if it is 4:30 in the late afternoon or 4:30 in the morning of the 20th of June 2020. The witness agreed that indeed that is so. And then Muyeke asked him if he could help the court. He started by saying at 8:19, accused number 2 was booked out. Then you were taking him to Foslo Court, but you ended up in Moroka Police Station, according to the AVL. You booked accused number 2 back at Primrose Police Station. Then all these answers was yes, yes, yes from Bongani. The estimated time says you were with accused number 2 for at least 22 hours. 22 hours of the 20th plus 17 hours of the 18th of June 2020, which all adds up to almost 40 hours with Ntanzi. Do you agree with that? He said yes, he does agree with that. And then Muyeke says, if you consider all of this, accused number 2 only had 3 hours of sleep. And this is where Muyeke was saying things I don't understand, honestly speaking, because I've sat in a Fortuner before. Exact Fortuner that he was driving when Ntanzi. I don't know. For me, I wouldn't say the Fortuner is the most comfortable. I wouldn't say that at all. Whether the seats are pushed and flattened, I don't think it's the most comfortable. Any vehicle for that matter, it doesn't matter how comfortable the vehicle is. That is not meant for people to sleep on. That's not a bed. Absolutely not a bed. But anyways, he also says he's not sleeping in the car. Then he said, except with your testimony that he slept in the car while you were driving with him. I'm talking about a bed. This is when Bongani says, I dispute what you are saying. These vehicles are comfortable. They are not like the olden days vehicles. The Fortuner is fitted with leather seats, which you can move back if you want to sleep. And then I'm thinking, yeah, after beating the guy up, allegedly, do you think you're also going to give him permission to ask if I can lay the seat so I can sleep? I don't think so. I don't think so. Then he continues to say, okay, Muyeke asked if he was in handcuffs. He said, yes, he was in handcuffs, but they were in front. I don't believe that either. And then he continues to say, I believe the way he wanted to travel with... Okay, this is another part that I was like, this information is new. And secondly, where's the sense in that? He says, I believe that Ntanzi enjoyed being with us, like traveling with us. And he was happy to travel with us because it was better than the sponge he slept on in the holding cell in police stations. May I remind you, Ntanzi's status is that he's the most dangerous criminal. That is why he needs what? To be escorted by the EMPD together with the SAPS. So he says that Ntanzi asked if he could come along on the joyride with them. The most dangerous criminal. High profile. This is a high profile case, by the way. High profile criminal asked SAPS if he could travel with them during the course of their investigations and whatever else that they were doing. Meaning that when they said, okay, fine, you can come along with us, taxpayers' money was misused. Taxpayers' monies were misused. We paid for a trip around the country for a criminal not to be in the holding cell. What does the law say about that? That is what Bongani was telling the court. That is what Bongani was telling the court. That, yeah, it was a wasteful expenditure. And we were traveling with the most dangerous criminal who killed Senzo Meyiwa. And so we laid the seats of the Fortuner when he wanted to sleep. We would stop here for 5 hours because our vehicle broke down. What about getting a van or something and put him in a holding cell nearby while you're fixing this vehicle? But no, they are with him. Do what you may with your logic about that 5 hours they were with him. Me, I believe in Ntanzi and his accusations that he was getting beaten. And then Mnyeki continues to say, Magistrate Cronje told this court in her evidence in chief, about accused number 2 not taking a bath. Basically, Ntanzi reported to Cronje that he hasn't taken a bath in 8 days. He hasn't contacted his family. He hasn't contacted his child, as well as a change of clothing. No, not Bongani going and blaming a dead man, saying that he was the one who was responsible for accused number 2. He says Sergeant Mabena was the one assisting accused number 2 in that department, the bathing and clothing and all of that. There was even a time accused number 2 ran out of toiletry, and it was Mabena who bought him or replenished him. We know that is not true. That's Buthelezi when they went to Northwest, and Buthelezi gave him 500 rand to buy toiletry because he hasn't bathed in 8 days. Why is this man lying on the stand? That now it was Mabena who went and bought him those things. I asked when I heard Buthelezi's testimony, what happened to his 500 rand? Who took Ntanzi's 500 rand after Buthelezi gave it to him? Because Buthelezi said that 500 rand was for him to buy a Vaslab and roll-on as well as a face towel. Who took that money? Now, this witness, Bongani, is claiming that it is Mabena who took his own money and bought toiletry for Ntanzi. The lies. And then this is Munyaki says he's going to leave this one for argument. I was asked a question about argument. What do they mean every time when they talk about they will leave this to arguments? I will talk about it some other time, not in this video. This is Munyaki says he will put it on record that it is untrue what he just said to the court. He says accused number 2, what Ntanzi said to Cronje and what Cronje told the court, it is what is true. What he's saying, Bongani, is a lie. And then Munyeki accused him that it is convenient for you to use Mabena's name because you know he's already gone. He's dead. And this is when he got upset, Bongani, and said, no, Ntanzi needs to honor the dead man for the good work that he did with him. Then it was Advocate Mngomezulu who wanted some few questions that he needed to ask the Sergeant Bongani, and says on the 22nd and the 24th of June, what vehicle did you use? And then he says, oh, we used Sergeant Mabena's van. And then Mngomezulu comes back and says, according to Jonathan's testimony, basically what Mngomezulu did, went to the court record and then abstracted Jonathan's testimony, where he said that Jonathan's testimony, accused number 2 was from Boksburg Magistrates Court. You saying he was from Vosloo. Suspect was in handcuffs, and then he was escorted by they escorted the Fortuner on the 22nd and the 24th of June 2020. And we know that on the 22nd to the 24th, the AVL of the Fortuner does not exist because it was parked. Even the AVL does say that the Fortuner was parked the whole time of the 22nd to the 24th, I think. I think so. And that is when Advocate Mngomezulu rested his case. Not rested his case, but more like ended his cross-examination. Judge Rata asked Baloyi if there were any re-examination. He said no. And then Judge Rata had a question for Sergeant Bongani and asked the same question that he always asked about the OB book, that were all the entries that were done in those OB books and all the police stations. Was there a time where it was reported that accused number 2 had been assaulted? And then Sergeant Bongani said no, there were no such entries. As a matter of fact, whenever they returned him, it says that he was received without injuries. And then the lights went off for me from there because it was load shedding. I'm not quite sure what transpired thereafter. And that also gave me a chance to do more of my work that I needed to do. But however, I did come back and watch the rest. But I just took some few information that I thought was important. And this is when Baloyi called his next witness, also a Metro Police officer by the name of Vishen Singh. And he was not on the list of what you call these people, the witnesses. And then, of course, Vishen Singh, he made a mistake when he was doing his, his oath. He said this is not going to be binding in his conscience. And then he was like, no, I'm sorry. I mean, yes, it is, which was quite funny. So basically, this is what we know about Vishen Singh. He's from Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, a superintendent there. He works under equestrian, what is that? Unit he's attached to. He's been a Metro EMPD for the past 28 years. And he knows the previous witnesses, that's Bongani, as well as Mohola and Jonathan and all these other people that they mentioned. He said they were all colleagues, and he's also familiar with SWAT unit. And then he was asked about what the abbreviation mean. He said it meant Special Weapons and Tactics. And then he was asked about other units that he was attached to. He says that he said he was attached to the SWAT unit until 2022 when it was disbanded. He was asked about his position that he held prior to SWAT. He says, I was an inspector to superintendent under SWAT. He says, well, basically under SWAT, he was doing managerial position. He was a shift supervisor. This is the guy that made sure that your shift, when you clock in and when you clock out, things of that nature. He was asked about his familiarity with the Senzo Mewa case. He says he's familiar with the cold case unit of SARS. And then he says he knows Brigadier Gininda, who is also the commander in the cold case unit of the SARS. Then he was asked about the relationship between the SARS and the Metro Police, particularly SWAT. He says that the relationship between the two assisted, basically the EMPD assisted EMPD assisted SAPS with high-profile cases and needed escort for high-profile arrests. He says they insisted with protection for the cold case unit, basically by escorting them. And then he was asked about the process. How is it done in order for them to be called in? He says in the beginning, it was just top people that talked with each other, and then they would instruct him. But over time, they would talk to Buthelezi, and Buthelezi would come and contact him, basically to inform him about a project or assignment. Then he was asked which case he was asked to assist with. He says the Senzo Mewa case. Of course, he had a very difficult time with the surname, and I thought that was unacceptable. That I must be honest about that. I was like, this is insulting. You don't know Senzo Mewa, one of the biggest cases in the country. You have not heard his surname on television. Then he was asked about the number of officials under SWAT, basically the ones that he worked with. He said he worked with Buthelezi, Jonathan, Lisering, Mapumulo, and Munareng. Those are the people that he worked with in the immediate. And then he says that they rendered close protection, which is escorting the SAPS when they have a high-profile suspect with them. He was asked about the specific dates when he was asked to do this escort. He said he doesn't remember which date it was that he instructed these people to assist the SAPS, Gininda in particular. Then Baloyi asked his final question to Singh, and he said any formal agreement between EMPD and the cold case unit. He said no, there was no formal agreement. Then it was Advocate Mngomezulu's turn, where he asked the witness, Mr. Singh, any specific number of officials in the SWAT unit. He said yes, it was plus or minus 20. The SWAT that I've seen before, it's men and women in their hundreds. But okay, this is South Africa after all. And then he asked, what was the nature of the shift? What was the nature of the shift? Okay, he explained something about two. I was like, okay, whatever. At the end, he just said their time was flexible. Basically, they could work 48 hours nonstop from what I picked up. But he was talking about two shifts that I was like, okay, I'm confused here. And then Ngomezulu asked, did they possess pocketbooks? And there's another one that got me. I was like, what is he talking about? He says that, let me see if I remember what he was trying to say. He said during COVID, pocketbooks were an issue because they were not procured. They were not bought, basically. And then Ngomezulu wanted to know, did that constitute any negative effect for performing their duties like right now? Of course, Advocate Baloy stood up in objection, and then Ngomezulu continued to say, like right now, there is no evidence to back up your claim about pocketbooks not being procured. And then he continued to tell the witness that COVID started in 2020. The witness then said, I can't give evidence on procurement, like buying of pocketbooks. In my mind, I thought that was very convenient. Very convenient. I don't believe that they did not have pocketbooks. I don't believe at all. Remember what I said, every time when it is Ntanzi's turn for the evidence to favor him, something happens. Always. Okay, my camera ran out of space. I'm not quite sure where I ended, but anyways, so about the pocketbooks, this is when Mr. Singh said he cannot give evidence on procurement of pocketbooks in EMPD. I thought that was very convenient because this was going to play in favor of Ntanzi. I did say where it's supposed to favor Ntanzi, suddenly there's always an issue. If it's not a GPS unlock, it's going to be this situation like pocketbooks were not purchased and whatnot, which I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true at all. And then Ngomezulu wanted to know how many vehicles were used for the SWAT unit that escorted Ntanzi. He said there were 3, if he remembers correctly. And then, of course, Ngomezulu was a little bit challenging to sing. This is when Ngomezulu asked if he could provide registration numbers for these 3 vehicles. He says he can't. And then Ngomezulu wanted to know, why not? You are here to assist the court. And then he says, I don't know their registration number, which I also thought that was quite convenient for somebody who is in such a high position, was giving orders to these men that were escorting a very high profile criminal. And he should have known these vehicles that are going in and out. He should have known whether they are fitted with AVLs or not. Clearly, he's incompetent. And then Ngomezulu became even more challenging to sing and says, you can't even tell if they were golf. He says, I was not there. A whole superintendent does not know the vehicles that were used. As a superintendent from 2020 to 2022, other than Senzo Meyewa case, was there any other? He mentioned that they did do escort for Radomir Kratcher. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But it also happened way before SWAT team was established in 2020 and before he started making these escorts. But yeah, Senzo Meyewa, oh my goodness, what's wrong? But yeah, Senzo Meyewa's case is not the only one that they did that to. And then Advocate Ngomezulu wanted to approach his client accused number 2. I think he wanted to say something to Advocate Ngomezulu. Then Ngomezulu came back and asked if in terms of jurisdiction, is there a limit? He said no, there was no limit for them. I was like, so as a SWAT of EMPD, you can go all over Gauteng and KZN and all over this place, and there's no jurisdiction. That's interesting. And then Advocate Ngomezulu wanted to know this last question about the disbandment of the SWAT unit, if he knew why. He said no, he doesn't know why. I think he knows, because they were starting to become the law unto themselves. I think there were lots of complaints about them being very violent with people. I think if we can get those records, then it will prove Ndanzi's case or Ndanzi's accusation about EMPD being brutes, allegedly. And then judge asked the question to the witness. It says, do you know Constable Nganiwe? And he said no, he doesn't know who that is. And this is when advocate, I think it was Mnisi, who stood and said, who's that? You mean Ngamane? And then it's like, oh, at least I was listening. I was close by. I was like, sir. Because apparently that's the same person that was accused by accused number 2, that in Silverton he got assaulted by this particular Constable Ngamane. And then the judge wanted to know from Baloy if he had any more witnesses. I'm supposed to be excited on this one, but I'm not excited at all because Bongani Gininda was called. Brigadier Gininda, the mastermind, allegedly, was called. Yeah, he was called eventually. I think he's the one who just broke my spirit because I'm thinking, what are we going to hear that is different, that is a constable, not constable, Sergeant Mukhan and Sergeant Mukhola is already not said. But anyways, I was like, okay, let's see what he says. Advocate Ngumalo again stood up and then he was talking about his own client and this particular witness. If warning statements are not going to come in between all of that stuff. And then, of course, the judge reminded him, or he said, we've long traversed this. And then he gave the reasons basically to remind that, listen, if your client's name is called, then you can cross-examine. So then I was interested in the profile of Gininda. I was very interested in the profile, especially his career history. So he was asked by Baloy, okay, then he said, introduced him as Brigadier Gininda in the SARBs. He said, true, he is. And he asked him how long you've been a SARBs member. He said, for 30 years. And what's his position? Currently, he says he's a commander in the cold case unit. And then Baloy went into his career history and wanted to know what his career history. This is when he said he joined the SARBs in 1994. But as he was going, he came back and said, oh, wait, actually, I did basic training in 1993 and I started wearing the uniform in 1994. Then he says he did internal security course. He also did special weapon and explosives, training in computer and literacy. And then he went on and said he did vehicle-related investigation where they, like hijacking, investigate case dockets, crime management. I must be honest with you, I was bored half to sleep when this man was on the stand. Honestly speaking, there was nothing like, oh wow, really? He did that? You know? And then he continues to say he also did specialized unit first work after basic training. He says he was then moved to Brixton theft unit, and then he moved on to work in detective unit in hijacking. I know he used like these terminologies. This is because he was talking so fast as if he didn't want us to know what he was trying to say, and he was not giving a particular period between this year and this year. This is what I did, and this year and that year, this is what I did. He was just running through his career history. He said, this is when Advocate Baloy said, could you please also attach years to your CV? This is when he started and said in 2003, he moved to anti-hijacking unit. With all this hijacking happening in Gauteng, what were they doing? He says in 2005, he was promoted to become detective in the theft unit. And then in 2005, the same year, moved to DPCI. I don't know what that is, unit at, by Stock Exchange. 2007, moved to Johannesburg theft unit. And then he was promoted in 2009 to, what was I trying to write here? Okay, I don't know what I was trying to write there. And then he said in 2011, he moved to provincial office under provincial task team. And then I think high profile cases as well. In 2013, moved to taxi violence head at the provincial level. 2014, moved to head office under national commissioner. In 2016, moved back to province. I wonder what happened that he got demoted back to province. Maybe there was a misdemeanor of some sort that he needed to go serve its probation, because in 2017 he's moved back to the headquarters under the national commissioner, but under a pilot program for cold cases. Let's go back to 2014. I think this is where I don't know what happened. There's a case that he was a witness at, and then he was found to have been a little bit dodgy, I think. And you know how our government works, right? If you are in trouble of some sort, they just reshuffle you. They'll just say, just stay there for 2 years. We'll bring you back. Don't worry. Yeah, so that the noise will come down. People will forget. You know, South Africans, they forget very quickly. And then we'll move you back to national head office. That's just me rubbing my two IQs. I'm not saying that it happened, but I'm just thinking that's what probably happened, because in 2017, like 3 years later, he's moved back to the head office under the National Commissioner of Police. But this time they were having a pilot program for cold cases. And then he continues to say in 2021, he was appointed head of National Cold Case Unit. Up until today, he's still the head. And then he continues to say he knows the previous witnesses, that is Bongani and Mukhola, Sergeant Bongani and Sergeant Mukhola, they work under him. And then he continues to say he is the head investigator in the Senzo Meyiwa murder. And then he continues to say he was asked about the mandate of the cold case unit. We already know what the cold case unit is about, because Sergeant Mukhola did say, she said that the mandate of the cold case is to look at all unresolved cases which are brought to their attention. It's cases the cases that would go cold and not prosecuted. Then he says they are responsible for the general response. What? He said we have general responsibility for such cases. So this is when jurisdiction came into question. He was asked about jurisdiction. He says no, the jurisdiction is national and international, where South Africa has treaties with other countries that they work together when it comes to these sort of things. And then he was asked about this current case. He says the current case that he's responsible for is the Senzo Meyiwa, which is Force Law 636 of 10 of 2014. He says it relates to the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, who was killed on the 26th of October 2014 between 8:30 p.m. I don't know what happened thereafter, because my data ran out. I was using my data because it was still load shedding. And then later on, after I got my data, like I purchased it, I came to a point where they were talking about where he read Ntanzi's rights, section 35 of the Constitution, which I thought, Gininda, do you watch my videos? Because I'm always on the SAPS's case about section 35, that I don't think the SAPS know section 35 off by heart, especially where they have to read you your right. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law, blah, 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 blah. And he did recite it in court today. And I was like, is he reading it? Or maybe he's saying it off my head. I'm not quite sure. But I must say, I pat myself on the shoulder on that one. I was like, oh, you listen to the client, sir. That's nice. That's nice to hear. That's exactly it. But this is where basically the lies began. And in my mind, I was like, what is he going to say that is different from what Mukhola as well as Bongani has already testified? And at this point, I lost interest in Gininda until cross-examination. But of course, I can't lose interest, because I have to come back to you guys and say, okay, this is what Gininda has said in his testimony when he took over. And I don't think he is going to be off the hook. I think even beyond the 14th of December 2023, he is still going to be on the stand in 2024 under cross-examination of the the defense team, unless the defense for accused number 3 and 4 and 5 do not cross-examine. Maybe it might get a little bit shorter, but I don't think so. I think this is the mastermind, allegedly, and with the mastermind, you need to squeeze every single lie out of him that he's going to tell. And I can already tell that this guy, he is good. He is excellent at lying. At his job, it's debatable. Debatable. Because it was quite interesting. I did write some questions here, even though I lost interest. He says that he does speak isiZulu, and he told him in isiZulu that the Section 35 of the Constitution. He even goes as far as say that his mother is a Zulu person, and then he did do isiZulu from sub A to matric. I'm not quite sure what his sub A is, but apparently he did it from sub A to matric. Then I wrote a little note, just to, because I saw that, I was like, you know what, I need to run and get myself a fan. I'm hot. But I asked this question because it said something about accused number 2 making a confession. In fact, no, he was still on accused number 1. He was still on accused number 1. This is my question. Who gets charged with possession of drugs, which could, if you're convicted or found guilty, you would spend about 2 to 5 years in prison. But the suspect goes like, 2 to 5 years is not long enough. Life sentence will do. Yeah, life sentence will do. So to get life, let me confess about the killing of Senzo Meyiwa that I was involved in. Is there a human being on earth that does that unless you have a death wish? If there was a death penalty. This is when I was like, oh yeah. He reminded me he's there to lie through his teeth. And any logical thinking person will be like, no, this does not make sense. If I'm found guilty for possession of drugs, maybe it's 6 months in prison, or a year, or 2, or 5 years. But no, I want to go for life. Think about it. Think about that as I close this video. Anyways, guys, if you like the video, give it a like. If you didn't like the video, give it a like anyways. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the bell notification so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. And thank you so much to everybody that's super thanking the channel and supporting it financially. I highly appreciate you guys so very much. Also, leave me a comment down below and let me know, what did you think about the final day we got to hear from Gininda? Hey, we've been waiting for this man, y'all. I don't think we're going to get much from him. If anything we're going to get from him is frustration. Anyways, do share this video far and wide. And also, guys, when you come across other YouTubers' channels, please smash the like button for them. Watch their videos as you do so. I'll see you next time with a new video. Thanks so much. Goodbye.